it's Fort Knox. Another case is Mr. Meeks in Florida ran for senator. He's already built in as the senator. They got a trampling majority of Cuban, Hispanics, or whatever that's in Florida to trample and say they had more rights to supreme the Constitution because they trampling in numbers. Let me tell you why, and I'm going to make it very clear. Blacks were written as 3/5. 3/5 can't consent to anything. So our revolutionaries and constitutional writers knew they had non-consenters in the Constitution. Non-consent could be God's sovereignty, and it meant God's sovereignty if they legalized non-consent. So when Dred Scott got his 14th Amendment constitutionalized in his 1866 National Civil Rights jurisdiction, he inherited it because he couldn't consent to it. And since he inherited it, it's a non-consenting amendment. The 14th is a non-consenting amendment. And this is why the Constitution is Fort Knox, because non-consent was legalized as jurisdiction when blacks became citizens of a constitutional, the highest contract in America. They became citizens in the highest contract in America. And since they're non-consenters, that locked off citizenships for everybody else right there. Now, if the other people who were here, citizens of several states, if they wanted to trample the Constitution just to make sure blacks didn't have, then what they did was trample theirself, and they voted theirself out of the Constitution. That's what they did. It didn't change the Constitution. The Constitution had an opening for them, and it was called the 13th. Voluntary servitude by consent to serve the Most High and be protected by non-consent jurisdictive Judah blacks. The namesake, the non-consenter set aparts, the one who took the whip for 400 years to be a non-consenter. So not to be with your filth of Babylon, thinking you could come here and dream on 400 years of labor and massacres of Native Americans, which included a lot of black Native Americans because we were part of several tribes. The Creek, the Seminole, the Cherokee, and all the landholding tribes. And so they put us in all the treaties of 1866 as inheritors. We didn't consent to even go in the treaty. We went in there as inheritors. Our constitutional Ephraim, that's who the constitutional writers are. They're Ephraim. And they worked for God Almighty. Ephraim is the father of all nations. And they worked for Judah and God Almighty. See, they were biblical scholars. And see, that's why it's not about skin, because a lot of them appeared white. But they were Ephraim, and they were adopted sons of the Most High, his legal administration. And this is why they came to America as revolutionaries. They really came to retrieve Judah out of slavery. 11 years after the Dred Scott decision, blacks became citizens. Why am I talking about that 11? Because the 11th Electoral College belongs to blacks. And the White House address is 1,600. Square root that's 40 acres. That's blacks' investment. So President Obama and Michelle Obama is not going anywhere. Black Americans put them there because they had 320 Electoral College votes. You say that 60% was all about votes. Well, that means the 15th Amendment has 60% of the vote if you want to use that alone. But after the Bill of Rights was inherited by blacks through the 14th Amendment and they became constitutional citizens, that means they stretched the Constitution from the front to the back. Not just amendments, they stretched the Constitution from the front to the back. It's called co-extensive with the Constitution. That means they inherited the Bill of Rights, and with the Bill of Rights, they inherited 100% of their humanity. But since they couldn't consent, they inherited the Bill of Rights, and that means the Bill of Rights became a non-consenting Bill of Rights. Since they couldn't consent, that 60% never went anywhere. Slavery is not forgiven, okay? Because they couldn't consent constitutionally to forgive it. 3/5 once the non-consenter is always a non-consenter because they didn't consent to be put in the Constitution. They didn't consent to come to America. They didn't consent to do anything. And that's why their 14th is the privileges and immunities. Because if you didn't consent to any contract, you got privileges and immunities from all contracts, meaning privileges and immunities from the whole world who think they could come to America and vote and be on top of the constitutional citizens. From all your so-called naturalization ceremonies. If the 14th is non-consented, that means any naturalization ceremonies later is a non-consented. There's a non-consented naturalization that belongs to non-consenters only. So all the ceremonies and all this and all that was just to process thieves. Thieves, scabies, scoundrels, and abominators. So it was a system that set up to accommodate you because the Most High know your evil would come here and try to take advantage. And the system was set up to accommodate you as the mule that was inherited by blacks. The mule is the U.S. corporation. It processes you and then it defecates you out. You become mule dung contractors because blacks own the mule. You own the mule dung. The mule dung is your worldwide, cosmic, corporate, constitutional, and worldwide debtors. Blacks can't hold that because they non-consenters. That means they have sovereign wealth waged all around the world and leveraged all around the world by a supreme contract. Yeah, you've managed to cash attrition them, but they own everything you have, and the banks know it. That's why the banks and everybody else take your stuff back. They know you're frauds. They know you're Americans. So warning, Neanderthal tramplers and those in white skin supremacy thinking the White House is yours. Maybe we should call it the Lighthouse since you're so infantile and take things literally. Maybe we should call it the House of Light, the Lighthouse. Because the 1600 and the 40 acres is the blood, sweat, and tears of the blacks that built it. So President Obama and Michelle Obama is not going anywhere regardless of how this vote turn out. Because blacks have built-in votes that supreme yours by 320 electoral votes. Because when they got their human rights or a Bill of Rights, they became non-consented, and that's 100%. And that goes along with the 60. 160 for the black woman, 160 for the black man. The black woman is the supremacy clause, the black man is the supreme vote. That's 320 electoral votes. So you can run like animals and show that that's all you are and have your last minute trampling, your last gasp of your fuzz mouth, satanic rage, and all your excuses to blame 150 years of your debt system build up on a man who's been in there for 4 years. He's the blameless. He's protected by God by non-consent jurisdiction. See, he's committed to a non-consenter. He's behind the 15th Amendment, which is the New Jerusalem wall. He's behind that, so he's considered the blameless by the Most High. So as God is for you, you know what they say about those against you. F them. Yeah, F them. In the language of street where you understand. Okay? So, you can talk all the mess you want to. And you can create all the scenarios of the problems he did. You was debtors at the beginning when you thought the 14th was yours or you pretended it was yours. It's been non-consented since it was constitutionalized in 1868 because blacks inherited it. They couldn't consent for it, making it a non-consenting amendment. 15th vote is an inherited vote.